Welcome back, everyone. I can't believe I've had the opportunity to upload 3 encounters back to back. I truly enjoy doing this, and I'm so glad y'all enjoy hearing them. Well, you guys tell me you do. You may just tell me that and secretly laugh at me. Just kidding, guys. I know y'all are truthful folks. That's why I love our group we've built here. I truly feel like I have the best subscribers in the YouTube game. I really mean that. You guys are awesome. Now let's let Terry tell us via email what he went through back in November of 1994. But first, grab a drink, lock your doors and windows, hit the lights, and let's get started. Hello, real adventures. Call me Terry, and my encounter took place quite a few years ago, but the memory of it remains crystal clear, as if it happened yesterday. For a long time, I didn't have a name or explanation for what I saw until a few months ago, when I randomly stumbled across stories of the Dogman on the internet. It felt like a light bulb had finally clicked on, illuminating an experience I had buried deep within my mind, something I had tried so hard to forget. Back then, I was in my early 20s, working late night swing shifts at a factory that was about 80 miles from my home. I lived in a small town just outside of Townsend, Tennessee, right at the edge of the Great Smoky Mountains. My family has been in the area way before I came along, and though I wasn't much for the outdoors, the beauty of the mountains and forests was always something I'd appreciated, even if it was from a distance. My shifts often ended around midnight, but by the time I finished up, got things cleaned up, and headed home, it was pushing 2 a.m. The roads in that part of Tennessee can be pretty empty and quiet at that hour, especially on those long stretches that cut through the thick parts of the woods. You'd be lucky to see another car for miles, and even the few small houses scattered along the way would be dark, with everyone in bed for the night. The drive home was almost therapeutic at first. Just me, my old '84 Toyota pickup, and the empty road. But over time, the isolation started to get to me for some reason. At some point, and I can't really explain it, but I started feeling really weird, kinda dizzy. But I tried to shake off the feeling and blamed it on exhaustion from working long hours. I remember the air had that crisp bite to it. It was mid-November, and although there wasn't any snow on the ground yet, you could tell it wasn't far off. The leaves had all fallen from the trees, leaving the mountains and valleys looking bare and very eerie. The moon was just a thin sliver, barely offering any light to the already pitch-dark road. I was about 15 miles away from home, driving along Foothills Parkway, a road that's known for steep curves and scenic views during the day. At night, though, it's a completely different story. The road is surrounded on both sides by thick forest that seem to suck up the light from your headlights. There are no street lights, and the only sounds are the rumble of your engine. As I rounded one of the sharper bends, my headlights caught something large and dark standing on the side of the road just ahead. I'm terrible at judging distance, maybe 50 or 60 feet away, but whatever it was, it immediately made my stomach tighten up. I instinctively let off the gas, letting the truck slow down as I coasted closer. At first I thought it might be a deer, which wouldn't have been unusual for this area. I've had my fair share of close calls with deer darting out in front of me during these late night drives. But as I got closer, I realized it wasn't moving like a deer. It was standing still, and it was upright, like a person. That's when I thought it had to be a black bear. We have plenty of them in the Smokies, and it wouldn't be unheard of for one to wander down to the road, especially with winter approaching. But as I got even closer, my brain was having a spasm, because it clearly wasn't a bear. It was easily 3 times larger than the biggest black bear I've ever saw before. I couldn't quite accept what I was seeing. It was tall, far too tall to be a bear, and much too lean. Its body was covered in grayish-colored fur, almost like a timber wolf. But it stood on 2 legs, with its back to me, staring off into the woods. There was something horribly unnerving about the way it was standing, kind of hunched over, but still towering over the ditch that it stood in. My first thought, ridiculous as it was that someone had set up a Halloween prop, maybe a prank or a decoration trying to scare drivers like me. But it didn't move like a prop. I coasted even closer, squinting my eyes, trying to see it through the windshield. I could feel my pulse throbbing in the side of my neck. I didn't think it could get any worse, and then I saw its head. It had this long wolf/dog snout with pointed ears that stood straight up. They reminded me of a Doberman pinscher's ears. I could see one of them twitching as if it was listening to something in the distance. Thick tufts of fur ran down its back, almost like spikes, but not rigid. They gave the creature a wild, disheveled look. It was now close enough to make out more details. Its arms, that's what I would call them, hung very awkwardly at its sides, almost like a dog trying to balance on its hind legs. But they just didn't look right. They were too long, with what appeared to be hands hanging just above its waist. I couldn't see its legs or feet clearly, as they were partially blocked by the ditch, but its upper body, and its head and face, was permanently seared into my memory. That's something you could never forget, I'm afraid. Its profile was undeniably canine, like a massive wolf standing upright, but there was something off about it, something I couldn't place. It looked too natural to be a person in a costume, and too real to be a trick of the light, but it wasn't moving. I was so fixated on trying to figure out what it was that I almost didn't notice how close I had coasted to it. By now the truck was barely moving, inching closer and closer. I had this insane urge to stop, to get out and take a closer look, convinced that it had to be some kind of elaborate prank. But just as I was about to step on the brakes, it moved. It was a small movement, just a slight turn of its head toward me, but it was enough to send a wave of terror crashing over me. The way it moved was so fluid, so disturbingly natural, that all thoughts of a Halloween decoration or a prank disappeared in an instant. This was a living, breathing animal, and it was staring directly at me. Its eyes caught the headlights, and they flashed with this yellow glow, like no eye shine that I was familiar with. It wasn't the typical eye shine you get from animals around here. It was something far more predatory. I could feel the literal hate for me radiating from this thing. It hated me with the intensity of the sun. For a second, I locked up and didn't move, my mind struggling to process what I was looking at. The thing was huge. I'm 5'10", and it had to be at least 7 or 8 feet tall, maybe even more. Its shoulders were broad. I could see its chest heaving as it breathed. But it wasn't moving toward me. It just stood there, staring, as if we were in an old Western movie and about to have a duel. In that split second, every survival instinct in my body kicked into overdrive. I slammed my foot down on the gas. The truck lurched forward with a screech as the tires tried to gain traction on the slick road. I could feel the back end start to fishtail a little bit, and for a brief, horrifying moment, I thought I was going to lose control and end up in the ditch right next to whatever that thing was. But the tires caught, and I shot down the road like a bat out of hell. I didn't dare even look in the rearview mirror. I forced myself not to look. I didn't want to know if it was following me. I drove like that all the way home, not slowing down for a second. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight that my fingers were losing blood and starting to tingle, and I just knew if I looked back, I would see those glowing eyes in the dark behind me. When I finally pulled into my driveway, I was pretty shaken up. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw its face. Those eyes, the way it had turned to look at me, so calm, so hateful, and so matter-of-fact. It was like it knew I was there long before I saw it. For years after that, I've avoided driving on Foothills Parkway at night, especially alone. Even during the day, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me from the trees. I never told anyone about what I saw, not even my family. I knew no one would believe me. And I'm certain someone listening to or reading this doesn't believe me right now. But that feeling of being watched, of that thing out there, never went away. It wasn't until recently that I stumbled across stories of the Dogman online. Reading about other people's experiences and encounters, I realized I wasn't the only one who had seen something like this. But even now, I still don't have an explanation for what I saw that night. All I know is that whatever it was, it felt like pure hatred. Like it had a deep hatred for humans. I could feel it. It was no doubt the apex predator of the Smokies. They tell us as kids that monsters aren't real. If that's the truth, then someone please tell me, what the hell did I see then? If you need any info I may have left out or have any questions, feel free to email me anytime. Thanks, R.A. Terry. Well, my friends, that's quite a few encounters out of Tennessee now. That place has to just be crawling with dogmen. I'm not sure which is worse, the thing chasing you or just standing there and staring with hatred in its eyes. To be honest, I prefer neither. I don't want to see another one. I've had enough of that for my entire life. I want to thank you, Terry, for sending us your encounter. I hope the subscribers enjoyed it as much as I did. That was truly terrifying, my dude. I'm just glad you snapped out of it and got out of there. Who knows what could have happened had you stuck around a bit longer. These beasts are unpredictable. Well, fam, that's gonna do it for tonight. I may be able to upload another encounter tomorrow night as well. I will try my best. Y'all have my word on that. Be safe out there. And I hope you and yours are doing well. Be sure and subscribe to the channel. Share the uploads if you can. And be sure and Ric Flair slap the like button on your way out. And you can add the woo if you want. Until next time, my friends, watch over your loved ones. Keep your head on a swivel. And as always, good night.